Hi everyone, this is Jay and welcome back to our top 100 C-Sharp interview questions, the deep dive series. Today we are diving deep into a concept that's absolutely, the fundamental to C-Sharp as well as object-oriented programming. It's inheritance. So we are going to talk about what exactly is inheritance and uh, as a agenda we are going to discuss some in the basic definition, how why we use the inheritance, some of the the core concepts. We are also going to touch base some of the advanced topics, nuances, as well as the best practice. So let's start right away. What exactly is inheritance? So inheritance is a relationship. What exactly it means? So inheritance allows a new class, which is called as a derived class, to acquire properties, methods, and events from another existing class, which is called a base class. So if you take a look, this diagram, there are two terms: derived colon base. So derived is a class which you are trying to create it, and you are creating this new class by utilizing from the another existing class, which is a base class. And the idea is that this derived class is going to derive the lot of the things which already exist. So 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 what actually it means that, well, as an example, a dog is a animal, a car is a vehicle, a, a saving account, a checking account is actually a bank account. So if you see, right, uh, it's is a relationship. The dog is a animal, a car is a vehicle, right? And same thing like bank account, right? Checking or saving account, or a fixed deposit account is actually a financial bank account. So consider that you are developing a software in enterprise, the organization, and you are working on a banking system. And then these are the separate objects. You have saving account is one object, you have fixed deposit is one object, and then it's a sophisticated system, right? So this is how you can take advantage of inheritance. You can create a bank, the account, which will act as a base class, and you can put some of the data members within that base class, which is common to all other accounts class which you are going to create it. And then you can take advantage of the inheritance. So we are actually going to take a look the code as well, uh, once after a few slides, uh, uh, and we will try to the understand it. So let's dive in right away. Okay, so I have one pretty basic inheritance example here, the way I was trying to explain you. So we have a count class and we have two data members actually, base class data, account number, balance, and then we have one function. Okay, in object oriented words, a class is actually a skeleton or a blueprint which contains the data as well as behavior, right? In technical terms, data means the variables which we declare it, right? The data members which we declare it, like account number, balance, and behavior is the functionality, the function which we created, the events which we created. Okay, so quickly, account is having account number, balance, one function. Okay, now then this is a saving account which is inherited from account. So in C sharp, the syntax wise, you put a colon and then you put the base class name, and then these are some of the data members and methods of this the derived class. We have interest rate, withdrawal limit per month, this one, and a function. Okay, now coming a pretty, the simple example how you can use it. So we are creating object of saving account, which is a derived class. Now see, the interesting thing is that account number and balance both are actually defined within, the base class, but you are able to access it within the derived class. Why? The reason being that derived class is actually inherited from the base class, and what actually it means, then all the, the members, all the members which is defined in account, derived class has access to it. It gets inherited. Now I want to put a disclaimer when I say that all the members can be inherited. Again, it depends, right? So normally public and protected are the one which a derived class, get access. If it is private members, derived class will not able to access it. So see, I mean, how, it is able to assign it, and then it's able to, the call this function, the deposit, which is actually defined within the base class. So this is how inheritance, the works. Now why you do that, like I said, right? You can have, if you have some common behavior, right? So you can create those, the objects in a base class, and you can put all those, the functionality, all those behavior, as well as the data in the base class, and then you can have, the derived class. That is how you take advantage of inheritance. So now since we covered pretty basic example, let's take a look one quick, another terminology which is called method overriding. And why I want to talk about it, because it's pretty, the closely the related. uh, a key aspect of inheritance is the ability for a derived class to provide its own specialized implementation. So if you take a look this diagram, I mean, left hand side it is one box, and then right hand side uh, it says override. Now I have put those three, the pillars to represent, a financial institution or banks. The reason being that since we are covering, our examples are based on, the bank accounts, what actually I'm trying to indicate here, that override let you let derived class to implement, extend its own functionality. That is what override does. So what actually it means, that you have some behavior within the base class, but in derived class, with the help of the override, you can extend that functionality. Now let's take a look at the code, how it works. So account, again, the base class, we have got account number and balance, and then we have this deposit function. Now within deposit function, the default behavior within a base class is that, I mean, it does very simple thing, that it checks that, the amount should not be less than 0, and then it allows you to do the deposit. And here if you see balance plus equal to amount, it means whatever the amount you keep, depositing, it's going to add into your existing balance. Now let's take a look here. Then you have the same function with the deposit, okay, and it's having its own now this time it has got a custom implementation. So what actually you are doing, I mean, we are actually extending that functionality. So that is what override, override does. Now what is the syntax, how you do that? So in base you put a virtual keyword, okay, and in derived class you put override. So in that case, what actually you do, that derived class actually override the behavior which you define in the base class. So here if you create a object of, the derived class, and if you call it, so see here how it's being, the used. So in main, we are creating one object of the base class, another object of the, the derived class. And again, I mean, since it is a derived class, you will have access to data members, public data members and protected data members, which is defined in the base class, which is account number, and we are defining a interest rate. Now here if you see here, so here we are calling the deposit function by using the the base class object, right? So deposit we did. Now here saving the deposit. So what actually it means that you will be able to utilize, right, the both features. So here the saving dot deposit, that means the derive class is calling its own implementation. um, so that is how you can take advantage of override, the method overriding. Mainly it is called the method overriding. Now let's talk about another, the very important concept, abstract as well as the sealed. So it, what exactly is the abstract class? And take a look this diagram, right? I mean, this pic, one right hand side, it is a sealed, which is represented as it's a lock, it's the closed, you will not able to open it. In abstract, I mean, there is a small space left. What actually it means that there is a there are some space where you can the extend it. So how we can define what exactly is abstract and what is sealed, and how it is related with the inheritance. So abstract is a class that cannot be instantiated directly. In other words, you cannot create object of abstract class itself. So then, I mean, how you are going to use it? The question is that how you are going to use it. So the idea behind abstract class is that it always act as a base class. In other words, you have to, it is meant to be inherited by other classes. uh, that is what the abstract class is. Another key feature of abstract class is that it can have two kind of implementation. It can have abstract methods, and it can also have non-abstract methods. What are the abstract methods? Abstract methods are those methods which are just like the abstract class. It will just have the body of the function. In other words, you will not have the implementation inside it. That is called the abstract methods. And then you can have the normal non-abstract methods, where you can have implementation as well. In just right away, I mean, we will take a look the code as well, that how it works. On the another hand, the sealed is that this is a class which you define, so nobody can inherit it. In other words, a class that cannot be inherited further. And the idea is that it is used to prevent modification or extension of a class. In other words, you cannot modify it. Okay. And why you will use the sealed class? Again, I mean, all these are uh, uh, fulfill different use cases. So you can use abstracted some other places, you can use sealed on another places. But the idea behind the sealed class is that you normally often use for security and optimization, or when a class is final by design. I mean, it is a final and you don't want any changes in that class. So let's right away jump in and let's see the code as well. Okay, so again, the same account class I have turned into abstract class. Same data members, we have got deposit. Now keep in mind, I mean, these are the main key things, that this is an abstract class, and like I was explaining earlier, that it can have abstract methods as well as non-abstract methods. So this is abstract methods, and if you take a look, that it has got just a body of the method. There is no implementation, right? You don't have logic inside inside the method itself. I mean, you just declare it and you finish with the semicolon. There is no open parenthesis, and there is no code inside that. So in other words, you just they declare it. And then you have got one function which you have got the implementation. Now saving account, derive class inherited from account, and you have got deposit here. Now keep in mind, now interesting thing is that here you have got abstract, and here you have got override. So what actually it means, that abstract methods has to be overridden, right? So the derive class has to do the implementation of a abstract class. So this saving account, derive, derived class and implementation of this method is here. Now another class, and this is the example of a sealed class. So you have a sealed class fixed deposit account, which is again inherited from the account, and then you have got, the deposit. The reason being that since you are inheriting a abstract class, so you have to be do the implementation of, the abstract methods. So this is there. Now the key, take a look this word, actually the sealed. What actually it means that this class cannot be inherited further. You cannot have derived class of this. Okay, now quickly again, pretty simple. We have static void main, and we are creating object, and then we are calling these functions. So this is a demonstration. This is a simple example, pretty simple example, how the create abstract class, how we define abstract class, and how you use it. Now, moving to the another interesting topic, that since we are talking about the inheritance, is there any alternative of the inheritance, and what should be the right place to use it? So while inheritance is very powerful, but inheritance should be used accordingly, just like any other concepts, right? There is nothing in programming where one thing fits it all in all situation. That is not the case. So the when exactly you should be using the inheritance, and this is very important thing. Sometimes the interview people ask it, that what is inheritance and what is the composition. Is there any use case where you should not be using the inheritance? So the golden rule is that is a relationship. That is the golden rule. Is a relation means what, right? If you have a situation where there are the objects within the object-oriented programming, where they are sharing the common behavior, yeah, right? Just like dog is an animal, or car is a vehicle, right? And the account scenario, which I said that, right? Or a manager is an employee, right? Or a square is a shape, right? So there could be another ton of example. So wherever is a relationship that is the best fitted for the inheritance, we should do that. That is where you can take advantage of it. But some places, right, it's not is a relationship, rather than it's a has a relationship. For example, car has engine, right? So there is no the inheritance kind of things between these two objects, right? So that is where you should go and you should use the the composition. Now quickly, I think we talked about all the things related to the inheritance. So quick, before we wrap it up, that what is inheritance? So it is a relationship. Why we use inheritance? The benefit is that it's a reusability, right? If you have ton of objects, and all if all them share common behavior, right? So with the help of the inheritance, you can do the the code reuse. It improves, it follows the drive principle, right? Virtual override. So you can have virtual, and then you can have you can override it. And inheritance is the first ladder to implement the polymorphism. So my next question is based on the polymorphism. I'm going to discuss in pretty detail, and we will take a look the codes, and we will do the live samples, etc., right? But it is the first, it introduces the polymorphism. It with the inheritance you achieve the polymorphism. Abstract, again, blueprint, it just creates a blueprint. You cannot have the instance object of the abstract classes, and then it forces the implementation in the the child class or derived class. What is the sealed is something which is a final, the final design. You don't want any changes in that class, and that is where you should be using the sealed constructor. So whenever the inheritance, the first constructor which gets executed, it is the base constructor. So base constructor gets run and executed first, and then derive what actually the access mod modifier gets the access within the derived class. So what actually you inherit public, you inherit protected, you do not inherit the private. And once again, I mean, inheritance, you should be using wherever it is a relationship rather than has a relationship. If it is a has a relationship, you should go for the composition. And with that, I think we wrap it up the today episode. If you like it, please go ahead, subscribe it. Thank you so much for watching.